Hi, this is Linda of Linda Bratten Creations and the Linda B Creative newsletter and Facebook group. What we're going to do for this sewing hack involves using our sewing machine to sew on a basic pierced button. If you've never done this before, this could be, I don't want to say life-altering, but it might enable you to get through your mending pile a little faster than you ever imagined. Now, most people don't know is that your sewing machine can sew on a pierced button fairly easy. Some machines actually even have a setting, and it oftentimes looks like a circle with two eyes or a face that's sleeping. And what it does is it'll do a basic zigzag, and I'm just going to go ahead and stitch it out here. It'll plant the stitch and then do the zigzag and stop. The feed dogs drop and you get a nice little attachment stitch. But what if we don't have this setting in our machine? What are we, let's say perhaps we have an older model sewing machine. As long as it has the ability to drop the feed dogs and to do a zigzag stitch, you can actually sew on a pierced button. Now, there are actual button sew-on feet, and they come in a variety of shapes and sizes. These are just two. You're going to notice that there's a little like plastic or rubber pad to help hang on to the button. But we've got a couple of hacks here that'll help you take care of that issue. But these are just a couple of them. I'm just using a basic open-toed embroidery foot. It allows for a wide zigzag, and it's got a flat surface that'll help hold my button flat. Now, I do have a little bit of tearaway stabilizer underneath my fabric. Of course, when you sew a button on, you will have 2 layers of fabric and some sort of interfacing. Now, something that I learned that I was really surprised is that most pierced buttons actually are drilled the same distance apart, whether they be large buttons or small buttons. So that makes the setting fairly nice. And once you identify how wide the zigzag needs to be on your machine, because that's what we're going to be using is a basic zigzag stitch, then you can write this information down and just start with that setting for your zigzag stitch. I am going to take my zigzag. I'm starting it right now about a 3.25. There's a couple of things I want to share with you. First of all, if you desire a thread shank for ease of buttoning, I'm thinking maybe you have perhaps a thicker, maybe it's an outdoor coat, so it has a little bit of warmth to it, or batting, lining, those type of things. You're going to want to add a little bit of a thread shank, and to do that we're going to use our first hack of this video, which is a toothpick, a common toothpick. Now, this just is going to add a little bit of height to our thread stitch so that we can create that thread shank just like we used to do when we hand sewed our buttons on before. Then we're going to straddle the piercings of our buttons so that the actual toothpick is in between the two piercings. And then we're going to use our next hack, which is matte finish magic tape. And I'm going to use this to hold my button in place. I'm going to attach my foot again here. And I have it set up, like I said, for a zigzag or a satin stitch, whatever you want to, however you refer to it. And I'm going to, nope, I'm going to have to go just a little wider. What I'm doing is I'm hand turning the hand wheel gently so I can see if my needle will clear both holes and not hit any part of the button. And then all you do, once you know you're going to have the correct width, is you just give it some gas. And that will sew your button on for you. We're going to pull it out and give it lots of room. I like to, because this is going to help create the rest of our thread shanks, I'm going to cut it long. You can just take your tape off at this point. We don't need it. And notice how easy that came off. And then what I'm going to do is, even though I don't like to do it, I'm going to thread a hand needle with these ends. I'm going to pull my toothpick out. I'm going to insert the needle back inside. Let's see here if I can do that for you. I think this is a really great demonstration. I'm just going to take both of these. One is longer, of course. And you know what takes the longest is threading a hand needle, because if you haven't heard me say it before, hand is a 4-letter word. And one of the other hints, the hacks I'm going to tell you, is when you're threading your needle, hold the thread, that's the soft, squishy part, and push the eye of the needle onto the thread. That'll just help you get that thread into the eye. If you hold the needle, you're holding the stiff part. We need to actually control the floppy part, or the thread. Okay. And we're just going to go ahead and insert this, but not go through the fabric. I'm just taking it back through underneath the button, between the button and the base fabric here. And then all I'm going to do is wrap it, just like we used to do when we made our thread shanks, and then take my small stitches to anchor it. This will give you a button that is flexible. It actually has that durability. And just to make it last, because we all know how much fun it is to sew another button on, put a dot of fray block or fray check in the center of that button just to give it a little more strength. So there you have it. 3 hacks using a toothpick, using Scotch tape to hold your button, the toothpick to create your thread shank, and how to thread your needle by holding the weaker part, the thread, and then putting that eye of the needle right down on top of it. Finally, now you know that you can actually sew your buttons on even if you don't have a high-end machine. You can have your standard machine with a zigzag, your feed dogs dropped, identifying the correct width. And I will say right now, for my correct width, it is almost at 4. But remember, hand crank it towards you gently. We don't want to be breaking needles and having issues there. But that's it.